5:03, and we're going to call our meeting to order. We want to welcome everyone to the African American Equity Restoration Task Force April meeting. And we're going to start, if I could ask Ms. Tiffany to do the roll call.
William McKenzie. Here. Tanisha Fitzgerald Baker.
Here.
Deborah Porter. Here. Stanley Taylor.
Here.
Phil Lyons.
Here.
Anderson Holmes.
Here.
George Underwood.
Here.
Brandon Harden. Dave Miller.
All right, if you've had an opportunity, hopefully, to read the minutes from March meeting, which was a great meeting, I would like for a motion to approve these minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? And then Tiffany, is Tiffany Toombs?
She's out sick.
All right, do you have the staff report?
Yeah, so we mentioned last month that we were anticipating having calls with candidates to serve on the task force. And so this is kind of the last call that if you have any recommendations to please send them my way. We already have some meetings scheduled with a couple of task force members that will serve and sit on those meetings, but we're kind of getting to the wire and read those names by the end of the week if possible.
All right, so recommendations for
Task force?
task force committee member additions. Do you have the total members that we're looking, is there a number specifically that we're looking for?
Yes, you have to fill, I think there's
3 seats?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, is that it for staff report?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And so as far as the committee reports, which will come next, due to spring break and some conflicts with schedules, we didn't have March committee meetings, but they will reconvene this month, so make sure you have those on your calendar for next Monday, committee meetings. Joining us today, who served in a role of support and really helped to initiate and kick us off, we have Dr. Charles Lomax Jr., President and CEO of Knox Area Urban League. So if you'd like to come up and share with us today.
Where would you like?
Here is fine.
All right. Well, good afternoon, members of the task force. Good to see you all. Different being on this side of the table, but definitely grateful to have the opportunity to share with you all this afternoon. I honestly, transparently, wasn't aware that I was going to be doing a whole presentation. Just answering a couple of questions.
Let me review my notes.
But I am here today to talk about a couple of initiatives that we have going on with the Knoxville Area Urban League around our housing initiatives as well as some of our small business development. I do want to go on record of saying that these two spaces are spaces that the Urban League has championed since its initial foundings in 1910, workforce development and home ownership, with two key components that ultimately led to the creation of the organization as you had individuals transitioning from the south to the north during the Great Migration in order to help them to find a better way of life. And so within our small business development space, we have a couple of different programs that we provide. The first of which is called Co-Starters. Co-Starters is a 10-week program that is designed for individuals who are starting a business, who have a business, and are still kind of on the ground level of that. We see a number of different people in different stages within that process. And so some come with their ideas and their dreams written on the back of a napkin, literally, where others have been in business for a little while and they're still trying to get going. This 10-week program meets on Saturdays. We're actually in the middle of a cohort right now. We're getting ready to hit week number 6. And within the 10-week span, they're able to engage with other business owners to really understand what it is to have something more than just a product in and of itself. It's about backroom operations, because in order to run a business and to successfully run a business, you need to be able to understand profit and loss. You need to be able to understand logistics, supply and demand, and a number of other things. And so within this 10-week space, we offer an introductory session to that. Additionally, we have guests that come in from our community that pour into these individuals as well and teach them the basics, be it marketing, be it understanding who their client is, really understanding what it is to perform and to evaluate a budget in an ongoing way. And so that service, we offer 2 of those classes a year. And like I said, we're in 1 cohort now. We'll have another cohort that gets started in the fall. We typically have a wide range of individuals from businesses that are there. Presently, we have in this particular cohort, someone that is in the cupcake business. We have another lady that is starting a soul food company. There's another young lady that has a basket business where she puts together baskets for various occasions. And so we see a number of different things along that line. And in this current cohort, we have 6 different individuals that are participating, and then we'll kick off the second cohort in the fall. The next piece that we have is called Next Level. Next Level is a little more intense. It is a 7-month program. And within this 7-month program, they meet every other week virtually. And we have a facilitator that runs and operates that particular course, and she's licensed to do so. And we have seen a number of great results that have come from individuals in this. In order to be a part of this cohort, your business has to have at least $150,000 annually a year that you're bringing in. And then in addition to that, you also have to have at least a couple of employees, and you also have to have been in business for a couple of years. And so we're looking for those that may not necessarily be where they desire to be with their business, but they're looking to have a plan to do so. And at the end of this 7-month cohort, the idea is that you will walk away with a 3-year business plan to help to steer your company and organization for the next 3 years. Additionally, with small business development, we also have a loan program, and we loan up to $250,000 for businesses to participate in that particular program. And of course, we're looking at things such as business history, credit, and all of that, but we're not as stringent as banks, and we're able to have a little more leeway with the funds that we're able to give. And to those that may not necessarily meet the requirements of a traditional loan from a bank. And so that's what we have in the way of small business development. With housing, again, this is something that we've been engaged in since the founding of the Urban League. I've got some numbers right here. This year alone, we have had 19 individuals that have completed our homebuyer education. Of those 19 individuals, 14 of them have made purchases to homes, and it's had an economic impact of $3,522,281 for our local economy. And so the homebuyer readiness and homebuyer education courses are at one's own pace, and so the majority of that is online. We do require individuals going through that program to come to the office where they meet with our HUD certified counseling agent for an hour, and they go through that process. And then one thing that we're doing as of right now, and this is just as funds permit and allow, we have funding through Knox County to help individuals with rental assistance. And so this is ongoing, and we're able to help people with utilities as well as rent. And again, that funding is through Knox County, and we'll continue that service until those funds run out. So that's our work in homebuyer education and readiness, and then small business development.
Thank you, Dr. Lomax. The Next Level, or any of your programs, are they at a free cost to those that come in?
So the Co-Starters program is $250.
Okay.
$250 will allow individuals to go through the 10-month program, the 10-week program. The 7-month program is actually free to individuals who are participating in that, and that's through a grant that we have through TVA. And so for those that meet the requirements, we're able to get them in free of charge for that, and they're able to participate in that program. But again, with it being such a long commitment, we are taking them through an evaluation process to see how committed they are to participating in that, especially with someone else picking up the bill. And that is a program that we run across the state of Tennessee in all of the urban leagues. And so the urban league of Chattanooga, Greater Chattanooga, Middle Tennessee, as well as Memphis, all run the Next Level program.
And then the home ownership education course, is there a cost for that?
That is on a case-by-case basis, so it all depends.
Your rental assistance, is that city and county?
The funding is coming from the county, but as long as they live within Knox County.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We've been back and forth between differentiate between the two, between the city and the county. So my question
Okay.
is it both?
Yes, so you can live in the city, as long as you
There you
live
go.
within the county.
There you
Yes.
go. Okay. That has always been clear.
Any other questions?
I personally, for disclosure, take advantage of the business loan program at the Aaertf. Is there any other programs, we went over the list of programs you offer to the community. Is there programs that are in high demand that you are seeing that aren't funded or are not being supported the way that you would like to be?
Within the programmatic aspects of the work that we do, the one program that I would love to see more funding for would be our expungement work. We have a number of justice-involved individuals within our community that we're able to help and take them through an expungement process to help them to have things that are on their record, released from their record, and ultimately that ties back into employment as well as housing. Because when you are justice involved and have certain things on your record, that prohibits a lot of people from working specific jobs or living in places. And so with that particular work, we're really hopeful that we can get more funding in for that to help people that are justice involved to be able to have those things wiped from their record for those that are qualified for that. And ultimately, that's something that we just finished year 2 of our expungement work, and we're continuing on with that. So,
Do you have any numbers from that program that impact?
off the top of my head, I do not, but I can get that to the task force. Yes, sir.
I think they had a very successful expungement program like that in Memphis and other communities. So do you happen to know what the cost is to have that happen, to take somebody through that program? Is there, per person who you want to get their record expunged? Do you have any data on that? Or estimates on
Again,
what
with me, I do not. As far as cost to the Urban League, it's nothing more than really staffing. We are able to, staffing in time and supplies. We're able to partner with the legal clinic from the University of Tennessee School of Law, and their students have the opportunity to represent these individuals under the supervision of their professors. We're able to partner with some of our local judges as well. And in those particular moments, the Urban League and even here at Pellissippi, because Pellissippi has served as a partner with us in that, because the program has outgrown our building, which is a sad thing that the demand is that high that we have to have more space in order to do that. And so I know that I think Mr. Underwood participated in our legal clinic before and offered his legal services. And so the individuals go and they go through a pre-screening and an orientation before we actually get to the expungement clinic itself. And so at the expungement clinic, everybody that is there has already been pre-screened. We know what charges have been on their record and that they're facing. And with that, we're able to go ahead and kind of expedite that process. And so it's an ongoing thing, but we have a number of volunteers from across our community that help to bring that program to fruition. And so the cost of it is nothing more than staffing and supplies. So, thank you. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. All right, so our next order of business is around grant funding commitments, and we have two on the table, but I'm going to kick off this conversation with some understanding, particularly for those that are watching or visiting us in the audience around grants. So to be clear, when grants are applied for, they usually are for a specific reason or to address a specific issue. And to get that money, you have to stay within the specifications of that grant. The task force has several buckets that were mentioned as far as home ownership, as well as securing employment and stability in that sense, economic empowerment. And so we look for things that would contribute to the success of those goals or contribute to those buckets. As you know, and Gwen McKenzie is here, who put forth the resolution for the task force, but this was a springboard from urban renewal. Urban renewal, when it started, disconnected communities and concentrated challenges in specific areas. The spin-off of being disconnected led to a lack of access and opportunities, resources, even economic empowerment. And so there's going to be a discussion around these grants and how they contribute to that, and if the task force wants to accept those. The other thing I've heard mentioned, and I'll put out there, because we did start with an investment or a requirement along with the initial resolution of $100 million, of $100 million. That $100 million really was to demonstrate the seriousness and the significance of putting forth a task force like this, and to demonstrate the seriousness and commitment and acknowledgement of the damage that was done during urban renewal. We by no means mean for it to end there. But one of the things that happens in the grant arena is that you can leverage grants from other grants. So whenever we show a track record of grants, then we can start going after money to these other buckets. And so I wanted to kind of preface the conversation we're going to have on these two grants with just that general knowledge and understanding of how these may benefit. Now we know, right? We know that this is just a slice of the pie. But one slice will keep you from being less hungry. And so we're going to move forward with this conversation. Welcome all of our committee members to share, deliberate, and provide input before the vote. But if Tiffany could start sharing information about each of the grants, we will take a vote. The first one is going to be $8 million for Safe Roads for All. And that is from the City of Knoxville Engineering Department. Is there a representative here to speak on that? Are you going to speak?
No, it would have been Tiffany, but she got
Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Do we need to table it for more information, or can we go from what was sent?
We could go from what was sent if you guys are comfortable. She kind of presented it last month, so if you guys feel comfortable, I would suggest going ahead and just discuss it.
Okay, let's do this. Should we vote on each one individually? Okay. All right, so let me say one other thing then. So when we talk about safe roads and connectivity, that involves all forms of transportation. We're talking about walkability, the ability to ride bikes, even the ability, I've understood, to work on our bus routes and to make sure that we have access to in transportation. The other thing it does, because it's kind of a ripple effect, when you have neighborhoods that are connected and we beautify those neighborhoods, then we also have an increase in property value, and again, the opportunity to draw in additional funds to support our neighborhoods that were originally disconnected under urban renewal. So this first grant for $8 million is for Safe Roads for All. Can I get a motion to vote accepting support of that grant from the task force? Second?
Who was that? It was
It's
Second.
All in favor or any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes. The second grant, quite sizable, is the 42.6 million Reconnecting Communities grant. And that grant was proposed by the city of Knoxville in KCDC. The specific plans are still in development, but will include a lot of input from us, and it is sizable and specific to connecting East Knoxville, which was originally disconnected. And there is a lot of history. I actually went to the vet this past week to review and make sure I understood urban renewal and looked at the maps. Also, I worked for KUB and had a chance to review the original maps prior to urban renewal. And they provided me with that, so I could really see where the dislocation was. Now, the question similar to the 8 million is if the task force would like to accept this 42.8 million grant to contribute to the goals that we have under our framework. Can I get a motion for approval on that?
I move.
Second,
Second.
Discussion?
So this will contribute to the 100 million that was the original goal for the task force.
Well, what it will contribute, but what I prefaced it with is that 100 million was the original amount. And there has been discussion and concern that this will reduce efforts if we would be at almost half. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we understood that the 100 million was a start and a spark to the task, because this work needs to live beyond us. This work started with that significant amount to say, yes, we're serious about this business. But yes, that 42.6, or we can make it 142.6. You know what I'm saying? But yes, that will contribute to that amount, to the amount invested for the task force.
This doesn't reduce the necessity of continuing to
Exactly.
pursue everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Because we have several buckets.
Some of the common things, the 42 million has already been awarded, is that right?
Yes.
So what are we doing? I'm trying to get clarification.
Well, while we're voting,
Yes, yeah,
we're voting to see if the task force wants to accept that amount towards our goals and our framework based on urban renewal and the effects, because they're going to get the money anyway. But do we want to have input and count that towards the investment under our guidelines is is that the way you're going to okay.
Well, from our meeting and my discussion with KCDC, my concern is that these funds are so restricted that our recommendation for policy to the council wasn't necessarily be a one-for-one with these dollars. So kind of my concern is our ability and our input as a task force to be able to guide these dollars for that to be connected directly to the task force.
Right, so when you say guide the dollars, and you're right, it's from TDOT, so the Tennessee Department of Transportation, so those dollars specifically have to go to connectivity. There have been conversations, I spoke also with Ben Bentley at KCDC. He was very clear on our expectations there. Can we walk outside of those? No, but can we direct and make sure, or at least do our best efforts to make sure those dollars are used as intended? Now, it's gonna be in East Knoxville, because that's written in the grant. That's why they got the grant, right? And so we just need to think and make sure that we have community input, that we look at the plans. I would hope also, because they're gonna get the money anyway, regardless of what we vote on today,
This is
right?
South Knoxville also.
Well, because the city at large is good, because if you connect two people, both sides benefit. And so they're gonna get the money anyway, but can we use a portion of that or all of it to be specific to the goals of the task force? And that's the question, Now, I can't predict what happens down the future, but I do know that this is a sizable investment to the area that was disconnected by urban renewal. Gwen, you might have more input on that or to be able to address the concerns, and I do understand the concern.
Right, and I think that kind of begs the question with all of us, and to be clear, KCDC applied for the grant on behalf of the city, so the city does not necessarily dictate as well. However, we have influence, just like the task force will have influence. In order for us to keep that influence, I think it's incumbent on us to accept the dollars as the task force, because otherwise I think it's going to diminish our influence and our impact to be able to say, here's some recommendations as it relates to where that funding and answering the things that we would like to see in this community. As Tanisha said, those of us on the task force, if you all have not had an opportunity to look at that grant and read it, we can probably, Tiffany, we can send that out.
It's on the KCDC website.
Right, yeah, at a high level. And so I would recommend that we do, at this point, anything that we can bring to the table and have a positive influence and impact in this community is better than, as you said, having nothing at all. Again, I think that we also have to look at how do we broaden our horizons as far as grant funding, to be able to say that we have accepted the $8 million, we've accepted these dollars, but absolutely going to put us in a really good position to be able to get additional grants that will be more specific to some of the other things that we know that we really want to impact and influence as it relates to rebuilding and restoring some of the things that was lost as far as generational wealth building opportunities in infrastructure and connectivity. Those things absolutely help when you're talking about business development and access to be able for businesses to be able to thrive and grow in this community. And so that's my position where I stand on it. But again, this is a joint effort. The majority of us have to be in agreement on that.
And one last thing I would offer, as I thought about this and listening to people and their concerns as well, is the ability to keep it public. You know, if we're attached to it, we have the ability to at least keep it public and keep our eyes on it. And I think that gives us some strength as a community to be able to see and have the right to see once we sign off on it. We have a right to see what's going on and to review the plans and all of that. So that's, you know, I thought a lot about it. But that is my position, the same as Gwen's, is that if we can use this to invest this sizable amount, I think this is going to put us in a position for more, but also I will keep my eyes on it.
Are y'all accepting public comment for this topic?
Well, at the end, we do have public forum. So
We can't weigh in on this specific topic.
I think during public forum, you can weigh in on
We
any
don't
topic.
about to vote right now, so would y'all like to hear the public comments before you make the vote? That's my question.
Legal,
So the order of the agenda is that public forum is at the very end, so no, typically there is not public comment during the actual meeting unless the task force votes to suspend the typical rules and allow public comment, but that would need a motion and a second and a vote in order to do that.
Would somebody like to make a motion to let the?
Hold on.
all right, so we have a motion to suspend the rules so we can hear public comment.
Yeah,
Second.
on this topic, it's like the city council,
Sure.
county commission, they take it issue by issue, and during the time the issue is on the floor, in order for the public to have the opportunity to possibly impact or influence the decision. It has to be in real time, so I make a motion to suspend the rules and allow,
Sure.
How much time? 1
Was it
minute,
3
1
minutes?
minute, first.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Can we get a second?
So,
All right, all in favor? All right, perfect. Do you come here and address the task force, please?
Yes, my name is Zinga Lani, good to meet you all. So I am very hesitant and skeptical of this plan. If we want to start at a foundational level, right, when we talk about the effects of urban removal, right, it wasn't the damaging effects that urban removal did to our community. It wasn't just essentially it wasn't just a disconnection, right? It was an inability for our community to create like economics amongst ourselves, right? Us not being connected by itself wasn't connected, right? It's inarguable, right? So that came from lack of lending opportunities, lack of real estate opportunities, you know, still like dealing with like police, right? Our economic, we were not able to build our economics ourselves, right? So in this committee, when it comes to actually, moving in the sense of restoring some equity, I think it's important that we don't just look at EPC pushing, right? It's not just connection, because right now, we all know what gentrification is, right? We all see how many of our people are being priced out and pushed out of our communities, right? And more people are coming in, right? We've seen mayors, we've seen the city for years saying, we're not gonna invest more into the east side until we have more density. This typically means more white, middle class, young folks coming in, right? So this is a plan for transportation, right? And we know like adding, we know when it comes to moving resources around the city on the top of the transportation, our people end up being pushed out, right? So what is the guarantees that our people are actually have a say in this, right? If you look at y'all's plan, right? You have 3 major planks: small business development and entrepreneurship. If this $42 million is to be counted, we must be very clear. How is it yielding to our small business development and entrepreneurship amongst Black folks? How is this affecting home ownership amongst Black folks? How is this affecting workforce equity? If you can't concretely say and see it right now, right? I think the move would say, actually, we're not going to put our name on this. We're not going to give a stamp of approval. We're going to say why and say, hey, if you want us in this plan, you have to make sure that what we're about, make sure I have your strategic plan. You know what I mean? Make sure what your priorities are seen in this. Because otherwise, it's just going to get railroaded. Nothing y'all say is going to matter. It's just going to be just, so, oh, look, the Black folks just said the plan was good, and that's all. So I think we should look at this more critically. And I think if folks haven't actually gone through and looked at that plan, and looked at the effects, I wouldn't even vote on it right. So yeah, just wanted to add to that. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate that, and we could table the vote for consideration, but I do want to share some more information based on your comments, because I think that concern is not unique. It's one that I've had, that other community members have shared. So I had to think about, so the issues you mentioned were caused because urban renewal started when they put the interstates in. So everything you mentioned was a result of the intention of urban renewal. So when we got disconnected, then we lost the opportunity to have our jobs, our homes, our churches, everything to be community, for us to circulate wealth within our own communities, and people didn't have to come. There are people who still have not even been, there's no need. They haven't even been to.
We have those in our communities before the highways came, and the highways.
That's right, that's what I'm trying to say. We had it,
Yeah.
and then we lost it.
Let's build that in our own communities and not just say we need to reconnect to other people. You know what I'm saying?
Right, I do understand. So, for example, the home that my family lost, 717 West Vine Avenue, is where Balters and Stokes Light is. So we talk about interrupting generational wealth. I know about that, because I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be on an island somewhere, had that not been interrupted. But I do understand that happened. But I also understand that in order for us to circulate wealth in our community, people have to get here and we have to get out. Now, will other parts of the city benefit? Yes, because there are not many plans that will only have one community benefit that are approved on a federal level. But my interest is, and I get what you're saying, if we put our name on it, what are we saying? I've shared, I want to keep eyes on it, and I want to put forth best effort. Are there guarantees? I'm not sure there's a lot that is, but we're hopeful of that. If the committee wants to table the vote, I'm willing to accept that. If you think we need more discussion on it, how much time do we have, is my question.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, I want to say this, just as we were discussing, I feel like personally, we were a part of that grant. We did write a letter, and we were a big part of receiving that grant. I think because, and this is just my personal concern, just because our recommendation for policy and how we would help to orchestrate how those dollars would be used is more disconnected than I feel comfortable with.
Okay.
So that is I understand our community will benefit from these dollars, but as far as how the task force was formed, the way I understood the task force to be implemented, it's a little bit of a disconnect.
Okay. All right, so then, I think we should table this grant, or table this vote. And really think, now, I have thought about, and we would have, yes,
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
okay, thought about each of those areas and how it might benefit from home ownership, property values to small business development. Because when we talk about lending criteria, when we talk about marketing, when we talk about logistics, some of the things that Dr. Lomax mentioned, this grant will have an impact on that, as well as, don't forget that the corridor is included, as well. But I think we should kind of hash it out so that everyone is comfortable, or at least the majority is comfortable in how, like you said, there's no question we would benefit, but how it directly ties to the goals of the task force.
Yeah, just to maybe express an alternative view is, understand Brandon's point, we are, and I'd have to go back and look at the original document. I think we agreed that the intention was to raise at least $100 million. At some point, if we've raised or helped support 150, 200, 300, like, it's not a bad thing if we get more than that. It seems like I don't see a scenario where the Black community is worse off with this for all the reasons we've talked about, right? Connecting our communities together has to be a benefit, either directly or indirectly, to the goals of the task force. Accepting it would only matter if for some reason we slow down on getting the next $100 million. And so my view is, I go back to the point you made. We played a role. It's unknowable whether we would have gotten the grant without the task force's support or not, but we supported it and we got the money. I think it advances the mission. And there's so many reasons, obviously, why connectivity would help with home ownership and access to good paying jobs and so forth.
And gentrification.
I understand all those things. And so the affordability of home ownership, if you look at sort of the plan that we've laid out, that's something we've got to address. But I don't see where we shouldn't accept this. And I think we ought to then think about, should we move the goalposts and say, all right, we'll increase our aspiration from, if we think there's, because I agree, is all 42 going to advance all three of these platforms? Perhaps not. Should we consider moving the goalposts and say, all right, we're going to raise an additional, we're going to up our 100 million, but my intuition, or my belief is, and that's why I seconded it, we ought to count it towards the 100, but by all means, as you start out, we ought not to slow down at looking at other initiatives that we can do that are going to drive home ownership and workforce equity and all those other things. I just don't see a reason why we shouldn't count it as long as it's an and not an or.
And I think you made a point to consider is how will it harm us? And I haven't yet, but we will talk about it. Being able to figure out how it will harm us if we accept it.
Yeah, we're not worse off, right?
My concern is not that
I need another motion, don't you?
it's an and.
Wait.
That was gonna be my point earlier, there is a motion on the floor.
Yep.
Yeah, so I got it.
It has been seconded, so we probably need to vote on that at some point, discussion of course will continue. But then we also, if the task force, if that fails and we wanna postpone it or table it, I would say postponing probably better option to do to May or June, whatever the task force deems is appropriate. So, but yes, there is a motion.
So we will vote on
So,
that and then.
Yeah,
we will-
and further discussion,
basically-
obviously allowing for that, of course, just kind of reminding us where we are on the boring parliamentary stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Well, as a maker of the motion, I'm willing to alter it, withdraw it, maybe that's simple. Then or we could postpone it either way, make a different one under Robert's rules. But just like to follow up in the discussion with, this grant has been accepted by the city and they will proceed on it.
Yeah, they're going to
proceed on it anyway. So just speaking practically, it's like, are you taking a voice away from the table as that grant is implemented by not supporting it? It's not like anything, it's not like it's not going to happen. So I see it just speaking just from a practical point of view, that the task force, as a task force, wants to be able to speak to all the points of implementation. And there always is, just having, if you look back at how projects work, there are always points at the state of the community is going to have input into the design of this greenway or whatever that are meaningful, can be really meaningful. It would seem, I don't see anything to be gained by withdrawing that voice. I see a lot, I don't know how much, but something to be gained by being at the table. So I guess I'm not seeing the real advantage, any harm to going along with it, but I want to be respectful to voices of the community, others out here. I'm willing to withdraw my motion, and then we could wait and have another one later. I don't know, what do you think the easiest thing to do?
I have another public comment.
Yeah, so, right now that motion is pending. You
Right.
can see how it goes in terms of a vote, but you can have more discussion, you can invite more public commentary if you wish. You can, if the task force overall is feeling like they don't want to take a vote to accept it today, you could do either a motion to table it. I think probably it's better to do a motion to postpone and then pick either, the May or the June meeting date to consider it again, so.
Okay. Well, I think we said we'd allow for public comment, so I'm open.
Well, yeah, you can absolutely do that. You want to do that for another 3 minutes? Is that what you're?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, let me clarify what I said, because I want it to be understood that I don't want the gas to come off.
Right.
And if we, everybody in the community hears this $100 million benchmark, and this $40 million is important. It's gonna help our community, but urban renewal help rip out the economic heart of our community. Now, we connect greenways to downtown, and those African American and those minority businesses aren't there anymore. It's not as important as maybe helping to establish the groundwork for these businesses. And so that's all I'm saying is I'm all with upping our total goal. I just don't want the gas to come off. This is a very important goal as far as the way we utilize these dollars. I wouldn't put half of it into green space, greenways and the driveway and to reconnect downtown.
If we had a choice, we would distribute that 42.6 million probably in a way that many are thinking,
Yeah,
right, to repair the home.
right.
But by it being a TDOT grant, it's specified, but what I do believe, because we know we'll leverage other grants, is that then we can go after the dollars for those buckets. But I do want everyone to feel comfortable and consider this. We do not, and I know I personally don't, want to inflict any harm. If I can't find any harm, and I do want to keep my eyes on it, I want to have a voice in this. And that is my position, and it probably will be, but I also want to hear other concerns and opinions about it so that we are comfortable as a task force in making this regular counting it or not, or however we move. I got you.
Yes, hello everyone, I am Deidre Harper, and just 2 quick things. I heard one of the conversation was like, what was the harm that could be done? And one thing that came to my mind is that I look to this task force as a task force that has been put into place to right the wrongs that have been done. And I know Z kind of went down some of the priorities that you all have. And in my opinion, that this grant is not necessarily hitting those. So the harm to me that could be done is the belief or the disbelief that the Black community will have in this task force and making sure that what it was founded for, why it was started, is actually going to be achieved. Because then the second point is I also hear that if we accept this, we will get more. And oftentimes that's what has happened in the past. We take a little bit of the carrot and nothing more ever comes, or they feel like that that's just enough. So I just want us to really think, as he said, Z said, critically about the harm, maybe not intentionally, but what that does is the morale of the Black community, especially in East Knoxville, when we accept things that are just before us, because yes, it will have an impact, but I don't think it's really connecting to the mission of why the task force was started. So not only think about the physical harm that could be done, but the mentality, the trauma that the Black community has already been through. And then we talk about grants from city government and the disconnect that is there between our people and the city government. Here we are again, kind of just accepting what is just before us and really not having an input at the table when it comes to what dollars can be used and how they can be more beneficial and more impactful so that we can start seeing that poverty rate decrease, so we can start seeing more equity in our community. So I just want us to continue to think about that and the implications that it could cause to people that are looking to you all to be leaders and be voices for us that are not at this table.
We appreciate that. So I think for the task force, what we need to consider is this. And, you know, for you all that are talking to community members, people have written me, I've gotten phone calls. I want you to take all of that in consideration. We know the money, the grant has already been awarded. So it seems like the question is, or the concern from the community is that we accept it. When you mention having voice, I'm afraid to lose my voice in this grant. And so that's the struggle that I'm having, because they're gonna have it anyway. But will I have the opportunity to have voice in the plans is what I'm afraid of. But I do think, and both of you articulated it very well and gave me cause to pause in that thinking, that we all need to capture as many voices, as many opportunities to hear the concerns of the community, and then we'll vote. And do our due diligence in that way. So, if we could, then to resolve that the motion is on the table.
Well, can there not be under Robert's rules a substitute motion to postpone?
Okay, so
Prior
can we
to
get a
the-
substitute?
That's how that works.
Right, yeah, as long as there's the same person who seconded.
So if somebody wants to make that would be.
So we don't need to, just from a process standpoint, we don't, since the motion was made and seconded, we had discussion, we don't need to vote one way or the other. We can substitute a motion or withdraw it without voting.
What I would suggest for being a little cleaner is to do a withdrawal. So I would start with the person who made the motion to withdraw it, and then second by the same person, and then move forward from there.
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion.
Then you just second. Thinking about it.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
And that, just to be clear, are we,
Or withdrawing, the
Are we-
motion being withdrawn.
That doesn't
we
prohibit.
don't require a vote, just to be clear, do we require a vote?
No.
No, I think there's withdrawal in a second.
Yeah, it's just withdrawing.
And to me, this is cleaner, this would allow it to be made in a subsequent meeting. I mean, you know, if we did
Right.
after discussion,
Right.
that's where we went. But, so it'd be similar, it'd be like a postponement without a date certain, really.
Just
Postponement
just
instead
a
of.
question for my fellow committee members, and this may be a legal question, and I don't have the document in front of me. Does the resolution that formed this task force dissolve the task force once we've gotten $100 million that we put in the bucket?
No.
That's for the sunset provision.
Yeah.
Let me jump in and say that in this resolution, there had to be numbers that were attached or would not have passed. And so it is going to be incumbent on the next administration going into the 10-year mark to extend and expand the work of this task force and the dollars associated that were initially presented. $100 million, in my opinion, there's no amount of money that can replace the damage
Correct.
that has been done. So let's be clear about that. But a dollar amount had to be placed in that resolution in order for it to pass. If you all recall, if you watched that meeting, it was on Zoom, we had almost 2 hours of discussion just about this resolution to get it to pass. And so I don't want us to lose sight of that, but be clear that $100 million is just that starting point. And so again, to me, this is an endless thing. This is, to me, something that will continue. But again, the next administration has to support it for it to continue. And so I think showing that there's been some dollars that have come into it. At this point, we have spent the last really almost 2 years doing administrative and really building this task force up because we had to come up with policies, processes, and procedures. And so I don't want us to get caught up in the dollar amount because at the end of the day, that is not, there's no ceiling on this work. There's no ceiling on the amount of investment that needs to be made when you're talking about right and wrong on this capacity. But again, keep in mind, it's about opportunity and access. And I encourage any and everybody that's listening, that's out there, if you all know of grants that go into this work, into these buckets, please, by all means, please share that information with us. We have people that are looking for grants. We all are hopefully continuing to research and look for grants, but we need everybody working on this. I mean, this is not just the task force's business, this is all of our business to help with that. Again, those bigger grants, yes, does it make a difference when they see that we have had the capacity that we have gotten other grants in? Absolutely. Because a lot of the things that we're talking about today are about where can we get money to help people with businesses? The Urban League does some work with that, but where can we get grants? Because the word grant means that there will be restrictions. There will be things where our hands will be tied to accept grants. And we now have to ask ourselves, are we going to dissect every grant? Because just because we ask for that money that says, yes, you can use it for this, there will be strings attached to grants when we're talking about big money. Now, if you want to get in a couple of $1,000s, we might be unrestricted. But the type of dollars that we're talking about that we need to look for, and that we've been building some relationships, Federal Reserve is some other people that we've had some conversations with to be able to go after those dollars. We do need to have a portfolio behind us that says that we have the capacity to be able to have input and to have, actually, you know, somebody might not think the letter from this task force means very much, but it absolutely means a lot. It means a lot. And so I just want us to not lose sight of that and not be afraid when people are asking us questions about, please let people know we need help. We need everybody working together, looking for grants, sharing that information. You know, if we are postponing or retabling this until the next meeting, I encourage us, let's have conversations with Ben if you don't have a clear understanding about some things. But also understand that we will never have free reign as it relates to this grant.
Right. And I would like to add, the meaning behind my withdrawing it was not a negative so much as it didn't seem like we were ready to vote, and I did not want to proceed with a no vote. It seemed like we needed more discussion, maybe hear more from folks about it. My position still is very much as Councilwoman McKenzie said. I think I agree. I think it shows momentum. It gives us a voice that is otherwise absent for something that is going to occur, and it puts us in a better position to get more money to come in that might be focused in ways that folks thought, you know, that supplemented this. It was more than transportation, so it was merely we could make, you know, this will allow this motion to come up at a later meeting, but it seemed to me that people weren't comfortable enough with it, so it seemed like forcing a vote.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think you spoke to, you know, our biggest challenge obviously is losing voice. So the other thing I think we might not have done a great job in is communicating the benefits of the portions of the grant that will support our goals. We, you know, individually we've looked at, oh yeah, this will help with this, oh this, you know, we've had some conversations I have with businesses and community members, but I think in transparency, we might need to communicate to the community who this grant is intended to support. What are the benefits, right? And give you an opportunity to say, well, these are the challenges to that. And then, and nothing rarely is 100% because of diversity. We have diversity of thought, experiences, and education, but we're gonna do the best we can always. And so I think we need to, if you make a note, McKinney, if we could have a conversation and get support from the city. I've talked to Ben, we can bring him back in, he was in last week, but to speak to how this grant will definitely directly benefit the residents of East Knoxville, and then we be able to share that information publicly and with the communities that we serve. Okay?
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, can we be more purposeful when we come back and even set the rules of game right now as far as if we're going to come back, if Ben is going to present. That's why I really wanted the public to have an opportunity to speak, even though that was different from what we normally do. But I think it's important because this is such a significant decision to be made. But when we come back, if it's next month, that we're going to say there'll be an opportunity for 3 minutes without presentation from Ben, Mr. Crowe, but just to give the public an opportunity to speak in real time before we make the decision, because if it's in public forum, it's a done deal. So I would just like for us to purposefully structure how we're gonna do this. If we're coming back, in May with this, and how we're gonna set that.
I would suggest that we agree that it appear on the agenda again in May.
That was
would
gonna be my request.
Yeah, so if we place it on the agenda and then with the understanding that we would allow for public input on the item, as we did today. You know, and then we would all.
Set a time.
Yeah.
Set a time.
And look, I mean, we're gonna talk through a potential framework for how we're gonna evaluate subsequent. They don't have to use this exact form. They can come back to us and talk to us in this format around how this grant applies. But I'm like George, I think the momentum here is important. I do think it is additive. We clearly all have the mentality that we're not gonna stop at 100 until we make significant momentum. And so I think it would be a shame if I would think it would be a shame if we let this go too much longer. So I'm like that.
Now, the good news is that we're not stopping anything in terms
Correct.
of implementing, accepting the money and going. It's just what's withholding is does this task force want to formally accept, whatever, be part of the acceptance, which would then and then we can get into whether having a seat at the table is a good thing and people's objection that we heard. Everybody had good points to make, where we can balance those and then take a vote after hearing for more of that and thinking about it. That'd be ideal. But I think if we put it on the agenda, then we'll know that, as you say, we'll structure
So-
this.
We also have the investment committee as well. I mean, I know that we're talking about Ben coming back and speaking. I think that will also cause for more just kind of discussion back and forth if we are hoping to pass for a vote or make a motion to vote in May versus Ben meeting with the investment committee, letting the investment committee dive into the document that they do have in comparison to the investment areas, and then they will come back and make the recommendation to the task force, and that's where the vote goes.
Can we do that by May?
Can we do, committees are meeting next Monday, so the question is, can Ben make dates? So I'll reach out to him.
Madam Chair, I want to ask, when Ben came, I know that I missed that meeting, how many task force members were available at that meeting when Ben presented?
You were all of us.
Everybody did? Okay. And how many task force members received calls or questions or feedback from the community of the committee?
I do.
So I think that also poses some interest of mine, that community members need to be aware of everybody, refreshed again on everybody who's on this committee, and what is going on, because historically, I think one of the things that we've seen is that people don't necessarily engage until something is at the table to be voted on. And so again, I think that slowing down a little bit to make sure that all of the committee members have a good understanding of what this grant is and what it isn't. So as we move forward, because every grant that we have an input in and it comes back, we have to understand that unless it says it is unlimited and it's no restrictions on the grant, we're going to be sitting at the table every time with these same limits. So I think maybe that's a precedent going forward, that the investment committee vets, some of these things and then presents it back to the task force.
Did we get any adverse feedback? I did not personally. Did we get any adverse feedback when we endorsed the application to begin with?
No, not yet, no. I mean, I got questions about what does this mean and stuff, but we understand and the parameters around it, and that there were restrictions, because some people just hear $42 million and don't realize, they think that it's unencumbered dollars and we can allot them anywhere we want to, and that's not what this grant is. It's very specific.
It's T-Dot, so yeah. All right. Well, ready to move forward with the agenda. which speaks directly to our opportunities to learn from the community of grant opportunities and things they might want. We did pass, I want to make sure, we do have $8 million for safe roads, right?
Yeah.
We're good with that, okay? We won't be safe, okay, here we go. So the next item on the agenda are sponsorship request applications. And so I believe at our last meeting, we talked about, is there a process so that community organizations, people who are doing the work, because we're really not trying to start anything new or reinvent the wheel, how can we invest in the good work already going on? And so if you could share a little bit about the grant application, I know it's in our packet.
Yeah, so the first thing is actually the sponsorship request, so that would be for any type of events that are happening in the community. And Brandon Hardin offered to kind of take this on to create an official application, because we typically just receive proposals. There's not necessarily a formal application that goes along with that proposal. It should be there. Your document?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, you want to just kind of explain?
Oh, it's pretty generic, but I wanted it to be simple. I didn't want it to be very cumbersome on the person that's filling it out. Kind of hit all the high points where we would be able to have discussion and understand where those dollars are, be able to keep track of those dollars and hold whatever organization that are utilizing dollars from the task force accountable. Anybody got any questions on the document that I created?
There's two documents in here, and it seems, is it just two different potential approaches we could use?
Yes.
They're similar.
Yeah, so we need to specify, so one is a sponsorship, so there will be events and ads and things of that nature, so we'll have to adjust the verbiage.
Okay.
And then the second document is the next item on the agenda, which would be an actual grant application, so sponsorships and then grants. So the question too is because sponsorships are typically, program ads and so forth and so on, what would be the max amount that people could apply for with the sponsorship request? That needs to be determined.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's the grant. All right, has everyone had the opportunity to find the sponsorship form in their packet? And I just want to go, since this is recorded, for those in case they want to come back and look. If you will see at the top of the sponsorship are 5 categories. We have discussed heavily 3, but we actually have 5. Education, home ownership, small business and entrepreneurship, workforce development, and community improvement. So those are actually our 5 buckets for those that are still hanging with us. And what we're asking for now is a review of how we can request for sponsorships from any of those categories. Am I correct? So that's the form with the boxes, and it says sponsorship categories.
So like the ones we approved last time. In the future, we can fill this out. I think it's
Yes.
good. I think it's well done.
So what's the max amount? I think the highest that we did, where you guys voted on was 2,400?
25.
2,500, yeah, so would that be the max amount, or it's open for discussion? Or just open, provide a document?
I do think so we don't get ones back that are $200,000. If we
Right.
have a smaller appetite, we probably ought to frame that up in here. Maximum of $5,000 or something like that.
So what do we need now? Motion for an amount? What do you think now? Different than someone applying for a grant from us.
Correct.
Which is when is already described, has a little title stipulations to it, okay.
This is just how much do you want to support?
This is just right for similar to what we did last.
Yeah.
All right, so can I get a motion for an amount
I like to make a motion for 5,000
as a maximum?
as a max.
Second,
Second.
all right, so the motion It's on the table, it's been seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, well, that's good news. All right, and so then Tiffany, can we move forward now to grants?
Yes.
What's the decision?
So, last month we discussed having additional funding left over. We didn't approve a framework until January, so the goal would be to be able to provide funding back into the community. And so we thought about the possibility of a grant opportunity. I would love to hear your opinion about how this would potentially work, but I don't think that we would need hopefully spend our approval to provide an opportunity, but this is again another opportunity that's open for discussion in terms of if this is something that you guys are interested in doing with the extra money that we do have available.
Can you remind us how much we believe we have left at this point?
It was around 200.
Okay.
Yeah.
Around 200.
We spent a
It's
little
okay.
bit last month, but
We
what?
did. Yeah, so it's less than 200, for sure. And so if you guys do agree to move forward with this, a couple things would have to be determined, but because we're in the tail end of a fiscal year, I just want to briefly go over a timeline in order to potentially make this work. So today, this would be the moment in which you guys would approve the funding opportunity and decide on the grant amount range. So that moves to pocket, because we'll have to go back to that. April the 13th through May 10th would be an application window. May 10th would be when the task force meets again and would approve the applications receiving grant funding. May 23rd would be the process where city staff would begin the process to submit, to have this addressed on the city council agenda for their meeting on June the 11th. And the goal would be for the money to be allotted or allocated by June 30th.
All right, so let me circle back around to city council needs to approve the grant recipients and the amounts. Is that correct, Lynn? Or is that correct? City council needs to approve
Yes.
the grant recipients and the amounts, and we're making recommendations from the applications that come to us, right? All right, snapshot version then, we are allowing community organizations to submit a grant request by May 10th. And then we will review those applications to see if they align with our 5 areas, our 5 categories, and make a recommendation for city council to approve those recipients and the amounts. And so we need an amount. And I know we have a range minimum to max. I don't like minimums too much. But, you know, of course it's a vote, so it's whatever the task force thinks. But I would for sure like to make sure that we have a max in there.
15 is what's in there now, right? So we'd have room for 10 to 15 grants kind of range.
Yeah, if, for those that
If
do
everybody
that.
applied for
For if everybody, like, I just know organizations, they give them $1,000, they can do some transformative things.
Yep.
And I don't wanna leave them out, but yes.
I was just gonna add that, typically with, our grant applications and processes, as with, most places, obviously you have your maximum, and it may be that some applications are partially funded based on what the application may be, or you may have, a high volume of applicants that are very well positioned to do some great work, and you want to, fund a significant number of them, and so it may be that you partially fund, so it may not necessarily be that because that organization applies for $15,000 that you have to fund them at that full amount, but you have the opportunity to. And so it's kind of not a all or nothing type of deal. You have some flexibility there in terms of how you're recommending funding.
Let me ask, on these ones, if we do grant them, what kind of accountability will folks have? do they come back here, or just, are they just, in terms of the expenditure of the money for the, you know, accomplishing what the goals were, et cetera?
So it's listed in here that they would be responsible for reporting back, program reporting, so they would do pre and post surveys, assuming that they would post some type of event or program, for example, take calls, their management clinic, hypothetically speaking. So that's what we have as far as a measurement in the guidelines, but if you guys feel as though there needs to be added later to that, then you can add that to the topic of discussion as well.
I think just an impact report, and that is just where the organization describes the impact of the dollars received. And when I participated before in this process, based on that, it also helps determine grant opportunities for that organization moving forward. If you do not turn that in, it obviously eliminates opportunity for grant funding moving forward. But that impact report really helps us to see if those dollars were spent as intended, with our intentions and all of that. So I would add impact report to that.
So,
And some organizations will give you an annual report as their impact report, which that works also.
What impact are we anticipating or wanting from these grants?
Well, just a few things, I mean, if you're looking at your investment areas or home ownership or home readiness, you know, we talked a little bit about the possibility of those smaller kind of situations, so like credit recovery or debt collection, property taxes being paid off, like different things of that nature. So we don't have to just
Thinking out loud, if you're giving me $15,000 and you expected me to do what's normally required to the city, use them as an example, why would I do that? That's a lot of paperwork, that's a lot of details for $15,000. I don't know if it would. So when we're thinking about the max, I think we need to take that in consideration. If we really want to have an impact, okay, is 15 enough? And as a nonprofit potentially receiving that, I'm not sure that it would be.
All right, so I need clarification. When you talk about the paperwork for the city, I'm under the understanding that you mentioned we are putting forth the criteria, the feedback, or the expectations for as far as accountability, right? So impact report plus,
the pre and post surveys.
yeah, the pre and post surveys. That's all we were
Is that
asking.
all, if that's all you're asking,
Is that all we have to have?
Yeah, I mean, it's really up to the task force to develop its criteria for what reporting looks like. So for city departments, for example, my reporting may look very different than housing and neighborhood development
Right.
because it's based on the programming I'm asking folks to do
right?
and the levels of funding. And so there's not necessarily a standardized reporting requirement that we're asking people to have to follow through with, and even in terms of like the application process, right? Or if you look at this application, we try, especially in the Office of Community Safety and Empowerment, to make our applications as low barrier as possible and pretty accessible. So it's not a super extensive application. Obviously, we want people to provide as much detail as possible about what work they're doing, but we also realize, and again, I think that this is part of the discussion that you all can have in this moment, maybe understanding where you're trying to drive us to, is what level of impact we expect people to have.
Exactly.
So if you're applying for $15,000, I'm not expecting you to solve homelessness, right? Right, like, but does your application, does the impact that you're saying you're going to have match, or the program that you're going to put on, match the level of funding that you're requesting, right?
Yes.
If you're asking for $15,000 and all you know do is put up some brochures and table it to events, that doesn't really match. Right, and so, I think it's kind of up to this task force to decide what level of work you want to see people do and set your funding levels to match with that. But I think at this point, especially with this kind of being you all's first time out, we're working on an abbreviated timeline that it may be an easier lift for some of our organizations, especially some of our smaller organizations. It may be an easier lift for them to put together a proposal that can be meaningful, but isn't expecting them to have, you know, a 12 or 18-month program that's gonna be super expensive and, you know, $100,000 grant for them to manage, because some of them may not have the capacity just yet to do that. So I'm trying to think about something that could be a good entry point, especially for some of our organizations, and something that's manageable
Yes.
in a reasonable timeframe. I think it's kind of where we were, but obviously, this is a starting point and a
Right.
framework, and so if you guys think like, hey, we should maybe think about funding, you know, 3 or 4 organizations at $50,000 to do a higher level of work, then I think that that's a great conversation to have.
And I was thinking of the both end, that it'd be a low barrier, but as far as if you're looking at what the max is, okay, you're gonna have a different audience at 15 than at 50.
Right.
So, I'm gonna ask a question, as far as when they make an application, are they including their metrics?
The application's in
That's-
here,
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That would be up to us and ask us to determine what are the baseline stuff that we want from every person that receives a grant. Do we want them to report once, like an annual report? Do we want them to, what are the metrics that they gotta do?
And if you look at, just to chime in real quick, if you look at the document that's titled Investment Areas Grant, if you go to the bottom of the second page, you can see where the program reporting information starts. And again, you know, nobody's married to this right now, this is just to give us a starting point for the conversation. But, you know, we could even include something to Mr. Taylor's point. You know, this is the requirement if it's at this threshold dollar amount or this impact that's expected versus a lower lift for something that's more of a micro grant. So,
Yeah, I think if we're talking about these dollars, I mean, going to be somebody really great to have a tremendous impact of $15,000. But you want to at least see what activities and what, you know, just to ensure that the money, you know, what they did with the money and get a report on that is a lot more honest. That's more what I'm thinking.
Yes.
And my thing is, I don't want it to be out of reach.
Agreed.
For some of our smaller organizations that have been doing work, kind of, and where 5,000, 10,000 might make a difference. I think about our students in ACT book resources, right? For $5,000, we could probably get our whole high school with ACT prep books that they traditionally haven't had or have to take out of the school budget. So I just don't want it to be out of reach for smaller organizations, but I do want to see what they believe their impact to be, and what I think I hear you saying is that we might in the application ask the organization for their metrics up front.
And all I'm saying is, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. All I'm saying is on the high end, if you say it's at 15, it doesn't matter. That's all they're gonna get. And so is that what you want? Or do we want to say the high end? That doesn't eliminate
The five.
the 1 or whatever. But at the high end of that, do you want it to be just 15 or do you want it to be more? That's what I was challenging. And for me, I want it to be more.
We could have 2 levels, right? The application, we could have 2 levels? Is that what you're saying?
well, what I'm saying, well, yes, you can structure it that way, but, you know, my comment was specifically about the reporting, but yes, I mean, I think, you know, we could work on that and come up with a way to, you know, based on what the task force intent is, you know, is it a program that goes, you know, from one range, one tier, I guess, versus another. But we would need, I think, Tiffany, chime in if I'm mistaken here, but I think we probably need a little bit more direction on what would fall into
Right,
each.
and all I'm saying is what if we were to say as an example, just using this basic language, 5 to 25. That'd be an example. So your high end is 25, okay, and your entry level is 5.
Or, excuse me, or you can.
Or you can set any other combination of that.
Yeah, and add, you know, small grants up to 5,000, large grants up to 50,000.
I think that's what I was
Another
thinking.
example.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So we could have one person, okay. And what do we need to do to move this forward? We need to review the application, make recommendations.
I think this still should go to committee,
Investment.
so that you can have.
Y'all might need a retreat.
Yeah.
Investment committee, because you're gonna have quite the task, my left. And so the two big things then would be, I think we're okay with sponsorship.
Yeah,
Would be determining for grant opportunities, one, if we want a small grant, and then a large one, and then what pieces, the application is a great application. I think if we have the metrics up front, we can see what the organization's goals, what they think their impact is. And then ask for that reporting for accountability on the back end, so that's one piece. And then the big piece is being able to get information for a recommendation on accepting the 42.8 million based on how those funds would directly benefit the community. That is.
I just have a concern about it going to committee because we have this application window.
Yes, that would not be thank you.
We have to do it.
Yeah, we'd have to move the window.
So we don't have a lot of room to move it because
this needs to be approved before the end of the fiscal year, and our fiscal year is June 30th. It has to be approved in a council meeting.
All right, so
It has to be approved by council.
let me ask you this.
So,
They meet, committee meets Monday. Can we, when, based on their recommendations, which will go to you, can you send back out a new application, like, so that we can say yay or nay? And or do we have to meet to vote?
you have to meet to vote.
Okay.
I'm mistaken, yeah, sorry.
What do we believe needs to be done to this additional?
What I'm hearing is the metrics, the ranges, as well as the metrics that are associated with the ranges. And then in addition to, you know, what is that program window? There's kind of a highlighted area, third paragraph down. Does that mean they have to carry out programming from May until October of 2020? Well, this is a filler, so let's say the fall, October 2024 through May of 2025. That would be the timeline that we would have to determine as well.
Or we could decide now
Why don't we do
to
like
add
a
metrics.
subject to, you know, the revisions?
so, I think some of the, and Christina can correct me if I'm wrong, I think like some of the minor details with regards to the application itself, probably if you all wanted to delegate it to staff, we could work on that and finalize it. I think where we really need the committee's direction is on the numbers and how much and what kind of that makes, and what the reporting criteria, what the reporting guidelines need to look like, any information that you want to see in the application. We can make it make sense if you all are comfortable delegating that to staff. But we need you all to decide what funding,
The tiers.
the tiers are gonna look like, or the amounts, and what expectations we have for what needs to be included in the application, and what we are telling people on the front end that would be expected to report out back to us.
All right, so we can make a motion to have the grant with revisions, the grant application move forward. So one of the things, if you want to make a motion about including, is that, am I doing this in the right direction?
Yeah, I think a motion to delegate to staff, you know, the details, but right, exactly what you're saying on the amounts or the tiers, how we want to structure it, the reporting and application.
Is there a particular order? So do we need to do the motion to delegate it to staff?
I guess, if y'all are okay with me making some suggestions, let's, can we discuss, the amounts and the tiers first, and at the end, I can tie it all together, that way
Okay.
somebody can just say something. And we can, okay?
So let's start with, because I think the tiers will influence the amounts. So let's start with the tiers. So so is there a discussion, we're talking two tiers, small and large? Okay, 2 tiers?
Is there
You can also just say up to 25,000, because I heard.
Oh, okay, up to 25,000.
Or whatever your max is,
All right.
but there's gonna be if there's no floor.
Then we don't need
If there's
tiers.
no floor,
Right.
then you could just say up to whatever
Okay,
facility.
so we need a motion for a maximum amount for grant funding.
Is there any input as far as where we're pulling these numbers from, or it's just 25 is fine?
If you do 25, first 5, given that you're starting out with 150, by doing 25, you got less people you can do. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
Just do the basic math. The larger you give out, the less you give out.
Right.
okay?
Right.
Which is fine, but all I was saying is, going back to the point I was making is, if you cut it off at 15,
What does it do?
No, I understood. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not dissenting at all. I'm just saying,
Where was it magic?
what's their,
Where did we get the
have
magic
any
25?
input on this number? Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Is
then,
it, like, what you're asking is like, is it tied to some expectation of an impact? Like $25,000 will get us blah, 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 blah? Or do we just kind of pull a number out of that, is what you're asking?
right, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So, I'm fine with that.
My only concern with putting the maximum, now that I think about it, is let's say we get a limited number of applications, but one is from an organization that really has it together. If we put a maximum in, so let's say we get 2 applications and one of them could use $100,000, and it seems like, look at that group last week, last meeting that was doing some rehab stuff. That seems, but on the other hand, if you don't create an expectation, we may get a bunch of applications for $500,000 when we got 200. So I'm trying to think about how to solve.
I think because it starts over, it's getting ready to start over in August.
Yeah.
So I think this is our pilot kind of process
and I think that's
the
the way.
grant
That's a
window.
fair point.
And then
Fair point.
we can reevaluate and set up our next grant criteria to.
Accordingly.
Yeah,
I like that.
okay,
See what we do.
all right.
Can we say 50,000 or 2?
Oh.
I think I started throwing out 25, I think it
I think 25.
You think they already, you think they, okay, 25, max, no floor.
So are we talking tier 1?
No tiers, no more tiers,
Okay,
because we don't have a board.
okay, all right.
Simplify.
But we're moving for staff to be able to implement any kind of restrictions on lower tiers. Is that what that's how?
No tiers.
Tiers were just, I'm sorry, I think I caused this confusion, but no, there was, somebody kind of threw up the idea of tiers, I was just saying that was one option. But doing it this way up to a max of with no floor, that's fine too. Yeah, and we can wordsmith it and put it on the application and print instructions, no problem. So then the next thing is reporting requirements.
Well, probably the next thing might be in the application, the metrics.
Yeah.
So I think you have the application already, added the metrics will be the next thing. Okay. Now, the reporting, the accountability piece. So the first thing, Tiffany, what was the first thing before we added an impact report? Oh, the pre and post survey,
Yes,
and then an impact report,
or annual report.
or impact or annual report. Any other suggestions as far as accountability on the back end, reporting accountability?
It is at the bottom of the investment areas grant, on the bottom of the second page, that's where it starts. If y'all want to just scan through that real quick, see if there's anything else that you want to have included. And again, you can wordsmith it, just if there's any additional direction from you all.
Yeah, I think it's good. You have to create that bespoke, or is that something that already existed for other grants in the city, that the city does? It's pretty standard language. Yeah,
No, I think that's
good.
Okay. And then for the metrics, I may have missed it, was there, what else, what are we talking about in terms of the metrics?
So organizational goals, so what, basically, if I'm, and help me and make sure, because in my experience is, how is the organization measuring their success? So we're asking for metrics on the front end, we want to know how they evaluate their success. In the how funds can be used, we have 5 areas on
On the sponsorship.
and only 3 here. Is there a reason?
No, that, we work separately, so we'll make sure it's.
Okay.
So for me, I felt like the sponsorship was a little more broad and a little less restrictive, and that gave. I want people to come to the task force. Now, if we don't provide those dollars, but they have an avenue to be able to submit it inside the application without really hardship. So I provided those up. additional budget so that they would have additional opportunity to participate.
I just think they should be added.
So that's all I'm saying, we just wondering, can we not use those same buckets for the grant?
Oh,
Yeah,
Like education and community engagement?
I would say yes.
All right. So can we add those, the buckets that Brandon is, okay?
But just to be clear, is that one of the three? Those aren't one of the three buckets in our strategic framework, though.
No, but the original,
but they should be added.
Okay.
it's in our original, but when we landed on priority, and I think where we are now is in our current framework, is priority from the original.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, to me, maybe you could, if you want, you could, in theory, somebody, when they're filling out these 4 questions, could talk about outcomes or metrics, but you could add a question to, because it says, well, how will your organization support at least one of the investment areas? You could add a sentence onto it, you know, what outcomes would you expect? I don't think we have to be prescriptive about the metrics, but a good grant writer, I think, would be talking about what outcomes they would achieve and how that would be measured.
Yeah, well, I think we do need to ask, how are you going to measure?
Yeah, maybe we just add a question, you know, what outcomes do you expect to achieve and how would you measure that?
Right.
I think that's the way, yes.
Okay. Did you get that?
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So what do you need a vote on tonight?
Okay. So here we go. I'm gonna read through it, y'all correct me if I got anything wrong, but if it sounds good, and somebody's gonna say so moved, and we're gonna move forward. Okay, so motion to approve the investment areas grant and grant application documents. We're delegating to staff the authority to finalize them with the following direction. So number 1, the amount will be a $25,000 maximum, no floor. Number 2, in the application for metrics, we are going to add information on, we're going to ask for information on how the group or the organization measures its success and how they evaluate it. How funds may be used section, we are going to pull from the sponsorship form boxes, and we're going to put that on the grant application form. And then in the reporting requirements, we're going to add the requirement of an impact report. Is that all good?
So, second.
Okay.
Oh. All in favor? Oh, so moved.
It was, lines in order.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Perfect.
Thank you. We voted on it before we had a chance to withdraw it.
All right, let's see where we are. All right, typically at this point, we would allow for public forum, but we did already recognize members of the public. Oh, we do have someone else signed up? I'm so sorry. Who do we have signed up, signed up for public forum?
Wasn't formal.
Oh, it wasn't formal.
Yeah.
Do we have some?
You tabled it, so.
Okay.
Was it, that's okay, was it on the grant? Was it about the grant?
Go table it.
What's your name, sir? I'm an untable. I have one question, is it about the grant?
Yes.
I would, if you wouldn't mind, love to hear what you had to say.
Please.
Well, I've heard a lot of different conversation concerning the grant. I'm personally for it. Being an individual that was raised in the community of Knoxville, Dandridge Avenue, there was one situation that I felt was very important when we were talking about safe walkways. On the north side of Dandridge, it's about 0.2 of a mile, there has never, I repeat, never been a sidewalk. It's always been mud, grass, and I understand that there are other issues that people have discussed here, I get it, but I think that that would be a very small area to fix. Because you have students going to Ryan Junior, you have churches up and down that road, and there's never been a sidewalk for people to walk up and down through there.
And thank you for sharing that. It's not the only area. I personally walked East Knoxville for walkability about 2 years ago. And noticed how many times I had to cross the street in order, that was one thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed is our bus stops. There's some in East Knoxville where the bus stop is on a slanted hill of a yard or grass.
Yes.
So it's not even a safe space to stand and wait on the bus. You're literally on the curb. And if you're using assistance with mobility, a wheelchair, even crutches, it is very challenging for that. And so I had these things running in my mind and this experience when looking at the grant, but I do appreciate you sharing that.
And your name again, sir?
Lloyd Gable.
Thank you.
Will you, where on Danvers Avenue specifically?
If you're going west on Danvers Avenue, right from the corner of Wilder, up on the north side, it's about 2/10 of a mile up there. It's no sidewalk.
Okay.
And then it takes back up just about, maybe 2/10 of a mile before you get to the Betco Center. And even the walkways are still uneven, they're old. And like I said, you've got a lot of traffic for students. I've seen people walking down through there that are going to church, not as much as I used to, but it's still, I think it's unsafe.
And think about from what's called Stop and Shop now, but Stop and Go going towards Several Green, so going east
Yes,
for the kids. Nothing on that side.
right, period.
Okay.
I had one thing. Tony Pierce, and I just, about the grant, I know y'all are still in the process of figuring out how this is gonna be spent to improve East Knoxville. But I wanna know about the, add to beautification of the east, period. Because they did partial right in front of Pellissippi and up to Hall of Fame, and then it just stopped. It's like the Magnolia goes all the way up towards the freeway. You know, there's nothing. There's no light posts that look pretty. It's just, blasé. So I think, looking to beautify the area is an uplift in and of itself, and it shouldn't look run down. To me, it looks run down. It's not inviting at all. And we're so close to everything that's happening on so-called Gay Street. Well, what about the rest of the neighborhood? We're closer to Knoxville, East Knoxville is than West. Why not make it look just as nice as that?
You made a very important point. So that was the Magnolia corridor. What we're asking is to expand
The
that
whole
deep.
thing.
And I know that we're talking.
I can speak.
Okay.
So if you remember, so the conversations around the Magnolia corridor started back in the early 2000s. There were a lot of community meetings that were held everywhere in East Knoxville. And it does take a lot of time to get funding for those things.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor actually did vocalize that she is committed to accelerating some of that work. It is still going to take a long time. And please keep in mind, that's just the street beautification.
Mm-hmm.
Private owners of businesses and buildings, that's
The
on
whole
them.
other issue.
Even though we do have, the city does have facade grant dollars available, when we walk up and down or drive up and down Magnolia, we still see a lot of the blight and some of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that aren't necessarily blight, but they're not contributing businesses or buildings to our community. And so, a whole other issue. So the person keeps up on the taxes and things like that. We can't force people to take advantages of some of those programs to beautify and open up their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But the mayor did openly, publicly make that statement that she is committed to the Magnolia corridor. What I really, in Burlington as well, but my thought process was, so we started on one end, let's start on the other, because the people who live on the other end, such as myself, we want to see some of that on that end as well. And so a lot of, so thank you for that comment and that feedback. And like it takes a lot of time. It took us a long time just to see that part. I just hope I live long enough to see the whole thing finished.
We talk about the effects of urban renewal and the displacement. And I think the challenge, the concern is how we can better spend our dollars in helping to restore home ownership. But I also think about those of us that do still own our property there. I want my property value to go up. I want my child to safely be able to catch the bus, walk, ride his bike. I want us to have the opportunity to have good, healthy pathways. And so I get the, both sides of the coin, but as a resident in the community, I think we speak with a little different voice because I do want my home ownership to go up. Yeah.
Cameras for security, cameras.
Lights.
Lights, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Little areas, and like you're talking about the buses, just to have a place where somebody can sit down while they're waiting for the bus.
And these are important conversations and feedback because this does fall within the grant. And so, but this feedback and the voice to help community members really be able to, I'll accept any decision as long as it's an informed decision.
Yeah.
And so when we can speak and have these conversations, it's very helpful. So,
Tony Pierce, and I'm a transplant from California, but I've been here 18 years, and so I still have an investment. I decided not to move after my husband retired, and so my daughter graduated from AE, she went to Vine. I supported the school, volunteered often. So I'm still invested, I saw that some cemeteries that are just, I couldn't believe the state that they were in, the grass and everything right over there by Vine, behind that park. It was like, I was horrified. But I know it takes time, I know it takes action, I know it takes a lot of things, and Knoxville is different than California. It's the money is not the same, it's a lot, it's different. But, whatever I can do, because I voted for you, to support you, and so if I can help in any way, I'm available.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very helpful for our generation.
We need you to be here next month.
Few neighbors with me, but no.
Please do. Please do. So I believe that's it for our agenda for this meeting. The next meeting is May 13th. Are there any announcements about any community events or anything really quickly? All right. You will be receiving an invitation to all of you for Austin's graduation. That's my announcement, but you actually received the invitation because there's a reception following, and I would love and be honored if you all could attend. With that being said, I need another motion.
You ran out of agenda.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
we got it. Oh, no.
Go right ahead.
Please.
I was just gonna announce, that the, April 21st, the week of April 21st is Youth Violence Prevention Week, and the Office of Community Safety and Empowerment, is kicking off that week once again with an event just up the street at Ashley Nicole Playground. There'll be food, there'll be music, lots of activities, both for young people and adults, because Youth Violence Prevention Week is really rooted in helping our community, our entire community, think about how we can impact all forms of youth violence, right? So it's not just community-based violence, any forms of youth violence. So that's going to be, again, Sunday, April 21st from 2 to 5 p.m. at Ashley Nicole Park. And you all are invited to come and share with your networks. And again, it's not just for our kiddos, it's also for adults in our community who care about protecting our kiddos.
Is there a flyer?
Yes, ma'am, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Still want that motion to.
Anyone